One thing that is missing is the shadows. So that's visible here very well, those shadows. It almost looks like the sun is going around and, casting the shadow on the hours. And that's what we want to create in our animation of that solar clock here. Okay, so we have to have a light that's actually casting a shadow on our clock. Let's go to the layers here, the layer menu, new, and the light. And you have, several options when you create a new light. You could use the spotlight, parallel, point light. The spotlight is, as it says, it has the area kind of interest. The point light would be more like something that creates light that goes all around that point, like a night light on your table. It just basically illuminates the entire room from that particular point. And we can use either of one. In this case, I would say maybe a spotlight it's good because we can control that area of interest of the light. So let's just use this one for now. Against cast shadows, we have to make sure that this is selected. We probably will need to tweak those settings a little bit. But for now, this is good. Click OK. And yeah, here's our light. The position of it is incorrect. We probably will start to have to tweak it a little bit so it can illuminate the entire face of the clock. I'm going to go back to my selection tool and see those arrows on there. You can actually move those arrows around, and that way you can change the position of the light. The one thing is, by using those arrows, I also see that I'm changing the area of interest. This circle there, that's my area of interest, and I want it to be in the center of the clock. Let's actually open the properties, transform properties here, and this is already getting too high. You start to illuminate more the arm instead of illuminating the face. I'm going to undo this. Why don't we just manually, actually using the values here, change the position. I'm going to start with Y, so up and down, and I noticed that using it here, by changing just one value at a time, I'm not going to manipulate the point of interest. So I'm leaving it exactly as it is. So then we don't have to compensate on changing anything here. So now the Y position is pretty good. Maybe we need to move it back a little bit. And now it starts to illuminate the hours, which is good. Maybe move it up. Now I think that's pretty good. I feel like the entire area is illuminated. It's still a little bit dark. Maybe I'll need to increase the values a little bit. We'll see. That the problem is right now that I don't see still any shadows. So even I'm going to double click here on the light. Even though I already cast the shadows on, but still no shadows. It's because when you start to do stuff like that, you not only need to set the light to the correct shadow settings, you also need to set the objects, and each individual object sets its own shadow settings as well. So let's take a look. We have basically two things or three things that need to cast the shadow. So this object, which is the arm, is going to cast the shadows, but this object, which is the face, need to accept the shadows. And the same thing here, the letters are casting the shadows, and the object of the faces need to accept those shadows. So we need to set all those stuff correctly. And it might be a little bit tricky because we already used those precomps. That is why. Well, let's focus first on the arm and the face. This is going to be pretty easy because we don't have any three-dimensional object pre-comp inside these. If I go back inside the face, you see this is the two-dimensional object, and we just really move it in 3D in this particular comp. It's not like the hours that we actually pre-comped. I'm going to go back to the custom view here. We actually pre-comp already three-dimensional objects. So go back out to my main cam. So when it comes to the clock arm and face, let's go and start to open all those options and properties here. And instead of transform, we need to go to the material options. Cast shadows is off. Well, change it to on. Great. And they start to work right away. It's pretty cool. Because it looks like by default, when I go to the face, I need to close it and open it again so I can have the material options here. See, by the default, accept shadow is on already. If I switch it to off, I don't have a shadow. So, in case you don't see the shadow, you need to just open all those material options and make sure that everything that you want cast the shadows and everything that needs to accept the shadows also is set to the correct setting. So this was pretty easy. I would say the one thing that bothers me about this shadow here, I'm going to go back to my camera tool and just orbit around a little bit so I can see that shadow better. One thing that bothers me here is this is so sharp. It does not look realistic. The shadows are usually, the farther they are from the object, they become softer. So I believe that this you need to set in your light settings here. Let's open the light options in that light. Let's see what's there. Distance, the diffusion. Let's start to diffuse. Start to look good. I like this. Another thing is the shadow darkness, maybe decrease it a little bit. I'd say because our light is positioned pretty low to the level of that clock face, that's why that shadow is long. I could actually change that just by repositioning the light a little bit. So what kind of value do I need to change here? It's how high it is. So it's the Y value, the middle. I'm going to lift it up a little bit, and that start to look better. Now what bothers me is how this light is really getting too soft. So I'm going to go back to maybe scroll down a little bit here, and maybe the diffusion, and make it a little bit sharper, so that looks better. Go back to our light, and it's really this tweaking, this tweaking that makes the difference. You have to just spend some time and start to tweak things around to make it look good. But that's also the fun part. You have your stuff already set up, and now you're just tweaking to your liking, and I think that's kind of cool to get to that point. Okay, one thing that I'm seeing here, I still have my camera tool active so I can orbit around. I'm going to dolly in. Using one of those buttons on my mouse, or actually on my pen. I see this. There's this little edge there. It's because my arm is just a little bit above the level of the face. Looks like it's just floating in space a little bit. So that means that I didn't really precisely position it in my pre-com. So to fix this, I'm going to go back to the clock arm, double click to go inside my pre-com. Let's actually go inside the shape properties. I could do it either with the shape properties or with the transform of the layer, which is here. But maybe for now, let's just focus on the shape properties, and I'm going to just reposition it. Let's zoom in, Command plus, and actually take a look at this. It's really above that crosshair. I still have my title save enabled here, so that's why I can see it. So let's just move it down just a little bit. It's in the position right here. Oh, it goes really fast. With the command, if you press command, same as with that font that I was changing, I press the command. You can decrease the speed of the change when you scrub the numbers. So I'm just going to just a tiny bit under, so I know that there isn't any floating in the air. Okay, so I can zoom out now, and now I can go out to clock together. Do I still see some light there? I still see a little bit. That could be also because of the shadow settings, because we introduced some of that diffusion there. and that could be like some byproduct of that diffusion. If I go back to the clock arm and lower the position a little bit more, let's see if that will fix it. Yeah, I think that fixed it. So again, a little tweaking here and there to make it like perfect. You want to do a good product, create something that is that looks good and works well. So so I'm going to use now the camera tool and pressing the modifier key on my pen to dolly out to see the entire clock now. And yeah, and I have to say I like what I'm seeing here. This looks pretty believable, with the exception of those hours again. Let's take care of those hours. What can I do to fix this? Well, the hours are pre-camped. I'm going to scroll up a little bit here. An interesting thing about it is, I'm going to like reopen this, and where are all those 3D material options? Like the clock arm has the material options, but what happened here? Why I don't see them? It's because the material options are now carried over from that pre-camp. It's because we pressed this collapse transformation continuously rasterize button. If I undo it, now I'm going to get the material options. But I don't want to undo it because I want to carry the data, the 3D data, from the pre-camp. That means that I also need to set the correct material option inside the pre-camp as well, and they will be carried over to my main camp. Let's double click on our composition here and select one, Command A to select all of them. Let's just open those material options, and cast shadows is off. That's the problem. Change it to on. And I believe because we have all of them selected, it should also change the settings on all of them. Let's actually test this. I'm going to go out from my pre-camp back to the main camp here. And yeah, it all looks really well. Good, we have the shadows. The light seems to be kind of dark. I think I'm going to go in and just increase the intensity of the light a little bit. See, intensity is 100%, we can go more than that. Okay, I believe that we are really close to finishing this part of our work. For some reason I see the text is a little bit brighter here, and there are some details that are a little bit different, but it's fine. I'm not going to exactly replicate this video. One thing that we could do in order to decrease the blackness of something that is facing the back of the light. Now this is facing to the front. I'm going to orbit around, and all these numbers, and the clock arm is facing the front of the light. It looks good, but then on the back it looks really dark. It almost feels like it's unrealistic, because usually when you are in a 3D environment, like some room or even you're outside, there's usually more than one source of light, unless it's like dark room with just one light shining somewhere, kind of a film noir type of look. But usually you have more than one source of light that illuminates your objects. But in our settings here we have just only one source of light, and that's why everything looks so dramatic. Let's just create another source of light, which is another light layer. I'm going to go to the new and light, and this time I want to just illuminate the entire room. So instead of a spotlight, let's just use the ambient light. It's good, and probably it does not have to be so intense, because it's going to really conflict with our spotlight there. So I'm just going to maybe decrease it to like, I don't know, like 40 or something, around 40%. Click OK. It looks better. I think we can go and tweak it a little bit. It looks overexposed now. So now it's just doing the tweaks in between this and this light. Remember that this is our ambient and this is our spotlight. Let's actually rename it. If I click on the layer, enter, and light, and this is gonna be a spot. spot. I'm going to open this, open the light properties here, and maybe decrease the intensity a little bit, maybe increase the intensity on our spotlight now. It's because now since we have two lights and everything is just brighter, just try to find the right balance. Decrease the intensity of the spotlight. I think if you start to lose the shadow, so maybe I need to go back to the shadow darkness and put it back to 100% or something like that. I can even go more than 100. Interesting. Doesn't look good actually. Why don't we just leave it as it is for now?